Okay.
All right. Do we have all of our participants, our non-board member participants in the meeting now?
Yes, we do have four attendees out there.
Great. Well, then it is 5:05 p.m. and this is a regular meeting of the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board. I am Anna Stout. I am the board chair, and I'd like to open our meeting with our call to order, and we'll move straight into our roll call. I want to start before we introduce board members. I would like to give Wendy an opportunity to introduce herself as our new director liaison from the Department of Natural Resources. So we'll start with you, Wendy, because you are our staff person who keeps you along with your team keep this board on track.
Thank you so much. My name is Wendy Padilla. I'm the new Deputy Executive Director for the Department of Natural Resources. So Tim Mock is now the Deputy Director of Operations for Colorado Parks and Wildlife. So I've been learning about the board and the work that you all do. Before this, I was the Chief Operating Officer for the department, and then I've been with DNR for about 23 years. So I know DNR fairly well, but not as well what the board actually, has been through. So I'm just in a little bit of a learning curve, but had a chance to meet with Anna, had a chance to meet just on the process and the agenda. So I'm really looking forward as the staff person to help support all of you. And let's be honest, Johnny is the one who is the amazing leader and does all the work. So my role is just to make sure I support Johnny and Stacy in all of this. So really looking forward to working with all of you. And thanks so much, Anna, for that introduction.
Absolutely. And I will simply add on a little bit. You know, we've had the transition from Tim Mock to Wendy Padilla, and I will say that there have been no hiccups. It has been a really seamless transition because Johnny really does manage the administration of this board extremely well, and so it's been easy on me. It's been easy on Wendy. So thank you so much, Johnny. Johnny, do you want to introduce yourself and your role with the board, and then we'll move into our board members?
Sure, Johnny Adad. I'm the executive or the administrator for this board. Nice to see you all tonight.
Thank you. And then I'm just going to go in order on my screen and ask folks to unmute and introduce yourselves. So I'll start with you, Eric Bergman.
Thank you, Council Member Stout. Good to see you again. My name is Eric Bergman. Good evening, everybody. I'm the Division Director here at Department of Local Affairs. I run the Division of Local Government, and I'm very happy to be back. So good to see everybody.
Thank you. And I was going to call Jared next, but we'll go straight to Jill Carlson.
Hi, everyone. Jill Carlson, engineering geologist with the Colorado Geological Survey. And I am double booked for tonight, so I'm actually at another meeting. I might have to, I'm going to spend most of the meeting muted so I can deal with catering and AV and that kind of stuff, but happy to be here. And again, I will echo what everybody has said. Thank you, Johnny. You do an amazing job keeping, the annual meeting of the National Board of Geographic Naming Authorities, running smoothly, and this board as well. So thank you.
Jared.
Sorry, it took me a while to find the mute button. Jared Orsi, I'm a professor of history at Colorado State University and a member of History Colorado's State Historians Council.
Thanks. Matt Steen.
Thank you, Anna. I'm Matt Steen, Director of Operations for Telluride Helitrax and Telluride. Also a member of the San Miguel County Historical Commission.
Thank you. Sarah, our Assistant Attorney General, do you want to introduce yourself? Or though you're
Yes.
not technically a board member, you are our legal counsel.
Happy to, yes. Sarah Rollins, an assistant AG. I've been with the AG's office let's see, going on 4 years now. And yes, I'm your lawyer and here to answer legal questions that you may have. And it's a pleasure.
Thank you. Thomas Andrews.
Hi, good to see everybody tonight. My name is Thomas Andrews. I'm a professor of history and director of the Center of the American West at CU Boulder.
Thanks. Eric Ishiwata.
Good evening. I'm Eric Ishiwata. I'm a faculty member in the Department of Ethnic Studies at Colorado State University, but currently serving as the Director of Workforce Development for CSU's Office of Engagement and Extension.
Thanks. Stacy Coleman.
Hi, everyone. Stacy Coleman. I'm the Assistant Director for Tribal Affairs for the Colorado Department of Natural Resources and also a staff member for CGNAB. So I would also like to extend my thank you to Johnny for everything that she does.
Thanks, Stacy. Nikki Gonzalez.
Good evening, everyone. And I will also give Johnny her flowers. And you're also really fun to talk to, Johnny. So thank you for all you do. I'm Nikki Gonzalez, a professor of history at Regis University, where I also serve as vice provost. And with Dr. Orsi, I'm a member of the State Historians Council. So thank you.
Thank you. And my predecessor is the board of this organization as well, so extremely knowledgeable. Let's see. We've got Tim Wolf down there.
Yeah, hi, Tim Wolf, Director of the Colorado Tourism Office.
Wonderful. Tony Exum.
Good evening, Tony Exum. I'm State Senator for Senate District 11, Southeast Colorado Springs. Good evening, good to be with you.
Thank you so much. We've got Wendy Padilla's Square.
Thanks, Anna. I'm Chris Arend, actually, but I'm proud to be Wendy for a moment. I'm the communications director here at DNR and cover comms for this board.
Thank you. Tisha Morrow.
Representative Tisha Morrow, House District 46 in Pueblo, and I apologize, I'm off camera, but I had a tooth pulled, so my face is swollen.
Oh, no.
But I'm happy to be here.
We're happy to have you. Rich Chimino.
Good evening, everybody present.
And Shelley Zonizer, if I'm saying that correctly.
Yes, aloha. Hi, I'm Shelley Zonizer, Executive Secretary from the U.S. Board on Geographic Names.
Wonderful. Welcome. All right, then that concludes our introductions. We'll now move to our November agenda review and approval. Are there any corrections or amendments to the, are there any additions to the November agenda that we have before us here? Okay, and is anybody moving to remove anything from the agenda? Hearing nothing, I would entertain a motion to approve the agenda to move forward with the meeting.
So move to approve the meeting minutes.
Okay, we have a motion from Tim Wolf. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Eric Bergman. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? The agenda is approved. Next, we'll move to our June summary. Is there any discussion on the June summary, or are there any corrections or amendments to the summary? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the June summary.
So moved.
We've got a motion from Eric Bergman. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, second from Nikki Gonzalez. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? The June summary is approved. Do we have any updates or announcements from our board members before we get into our cases? Great, hearing none, I will take us then to updates from Stacy Coleman regarding tribal outreach.
Thank you, Chair Stout. Again, Stacy Coleman, Assistant Director for Tribal Affairs and also staff member for the CGNAB. To give you all a few quick updates here. First, on a few of the naming proposals that are on the agenda later today, I wanted to let you know for Pingree Park and Pingree Hill renaming proposals. Those were introduced at the October 2024 CGNAB meeting, and the 120-day formal response period expired in January of this year. Outreach to all 574 federally recognized tribal nations and specialized outreach to the Ute, Mountain Ute, and Southern Ute Indian tribes was also completed, and no responses were received. So I believe that one is probably both of those are ready for further consideration from this board. Also, the unnamed feature to Lamont renaming proposal that was introduced earlier this year in June of 2025 at our meeting then. The 120-day formal response period is also expired in October of this year, and outreach to all 574 federally recognized tribal nations was done, including our specialized outreach to the Ute, Mountain Ute, and Southern Ute Indian tribes, and no responses were received there either. So that one is probably ready for further consideration as well. One last update to provide for the board here is regarding a pending proposal before the board, the Kit Carson Mountain renaming proposals. As you know, this has been on hold for a little bit while we went through some transitions with the Tribal Historic Preservation Office for the Ute Mountain Ute tribe there in April. TIPO offices are historically, they are small but mighty in terms of their team and the amount of work that they have to get done there. And the summer is especially in a very busy field season. So I was finally able to sit down with Mark Wing, their TIPO lead, just about a month ago, not even that much, to go over not only, all of our CGNAB proposals, processes, and everything else again, but to specifically highlight the Kit Carson Mountain renaming proposal that's been pending. When we left off before the transition in their TIPO office, their previous TIPO officer, Terry Knight, had recommended an elders renaming ceremony be conducted for that specific geographic feature. It got that sort of process to move forward and really take the next steps had been paused during that transition time. I picked that up with Mr. Wing, that conversation, and he suggested that we have a presentation before the Elders Committee for the Ute Mountain Ute. So I will be conducting that presentation. Right now it's scheduled for Monday, December 8th. Let me double check that real quick, if you don't mind, just to make sure I'm giving you the correct. I'm sorry, Monday, December 9th. So I'll be down there in Toyac to provide that presentation and provide feedback for our next meeting. I'll also be updating the Southern Ute Indian Tribe Cultural Preservation Department appointees there, Director Rizzo, so that she's aware of this, and then we'll take steps from there. So at this point in time, it's still pending, but wanted to let you know that we are moving forward with those specific discussions. And that's it in terms of updates for me at the moment, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. That was actually a lot of work. It sounds like a lot of progress that's been made. Are there any questions for Stacy? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item 7, and this is updates on the Lake Reed case. This will be given by Nikki Gonzalez.
Sure. So I was asked to do a little bit of follow-up research with the city of Denver. And just so you all remember the case, I'll just read the short case summary. This is a 1.5 acre reservoir. It's categorized as a reservoir in the city and county of Denver. And I'll just read the summary here. So the new name, Lake Reed, is proposed for an unnamed 1.5 acre reservoir in the city and county of Denver. The proponent states that the lake is located adjacent to the Frontier Airlines headquarters building that, quote, the couple hundred employees here at the headquarters refer to this lake as Lake Reed. The name Lake Reed is not tied to anything special. There are no amazing stories around it. The name just came up and has stuck over the years. It is sad to not see it on the Google Maps or known by the state. It's a solid little lake that brings joy to the people, close quote. So when asked to elaborate on the name, how long it's been used, and if it refers to a person, the proponent replied that it refers to reeds that grow in the lake and that the name has been used for around 3 years. And this was actually a couple years ago, so about 5 years now. There's reportedly a path around the reservoir. And so I contacted the City of Denver planning department, and they sent me to the water quality department for the state and for the city and county. And nothing turned up. So I think that tells us a little bit. So it was not in any of their records that there was a name for this body of water. And the water quality person told me also that this is not really within their purview. Yeah, so nothing turned up. However, Dr. Orsi also did a little bit of research. So Jared, I saw that you emailed me, but I haven't had a chance to really look at them.
I didn't turn up much more. In fact, not even as much as you did, Nikki. I did discover that it is on Google Maps. Now, the petitioner, the records that we have from him are 3 years ago, so there may very well not have been on Google Maps back then, but it is on Google Maps now, and it does show as Lake Reed. I also put it into Colorado Historic Newspaper Collection just to see if there was any historic use of the term, and I found nothing. So that's what I've turned up.
Great. Thank you. So that's what we've been able to turn up.
Thank you. I think that what we'll do then is go straight into agenda item number 8, because that is the official consideration of this feature. So this is consideration USBGN number 6084, the proposed naming of an unnamed feature to Lake Reed. This is on pages 13 through 24 of our packet. Normally, Wendy, I would ask you to tee up the case summary, but we just got what you would be doing, we just got from Dr. Gonzalez. So I think we'll just go straight into deliberation by the board. Are there comments or questions from the board or proposals for how to move forward from board members?
I had a question. I can't remember if we addressed this last time, but sorry, I've got a barky dog. Do we have reason to believe that this is going to be an enduring feature?
I don't recall that we did address that, but I think it's a worthwhile question. I'll tack on a second question, and I don't know if we have an answer to this, but did we discuss last time, or did we resolve last time whether or not we have precedent for naming man-made reservoirs? Is there any recollection about that? And I'll state my concern is this board gets a lot of proposals and we have a lot to consider. You know, I think recently we received over almost 100 proposals in one batch. So I'm concerned about setting precedent, if it's not already set, for naming small man-made potentially impermanent features, especially because the case to me is not yet compelling that there is a need for this from a search and rescue or navigational standpoint, or that there's significance to this name beyond the adjacent business. So those are my concerns. At the same time, if the board feels that that the proposal meets criteria, then I would entertain other perspectives to move forward with a potential naming on this.
Madam Chair, Rich Chimino.
Yes, sir.
Just want to point out, in the few years we've been active, once a reservoir is complete, we've treated them as geographic features at that time. Now it's a geographic feature, even though it's man-made. Granted, it is small, like you say. Could it go away? Is there much of a need? I'm kind of leaning towards voting yes if we were to vote, but I'll see if more deliberation takes me the other way. Thank you.
Stacy.
Thank you, Chair Stout. I just wanted to remind folks from our discussion from the last meeting that we had sort of paused sort of further consideration at the time to allow for this additional research to be conducted. And because of that pause rather than moving forward. Outreach to our, the Southern Ute and Ute Mountain Ute tribal nations was not conducted at that time. We were going to wait until we decided whether this would be a particular proposal to move forward with. So I wanted to at least let everybody know that while our formal procedural rules say 120 days from the introduction date, I'm not quite sure that we considered this fully introduced for the purposes of that from the last meeting, and we would still need to conduct that.
Thank you for that clarification. And in practice, at least in the last at least year or so, we don't instruct the tribal outreach to begin until there's a formal motion and board approval to actually formally introduce. So even though something is introduced by being on our agenda, it's introduced to the board, it's not formally introduced until the board takes action. And that in part allows us to do this research without burning out some of that outreach period. It also avoids sending Stacy out doing outreach on something that the board ultimately doesn't move forward for consideration. So thank you for that reminder. Jill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with you. This is a stormwater retention pond. It could disappear anytime. I would not support the official naming of this feature. But I would go along with, the majority if they do.
Other thoughts from board members? Eric, Doctor.
Yeah, that was my memory, that this was not, our conversation wasn't that this was a man-made reservoir, but that this was like an irrigation type ditch for construction.
Any other additional thoughts from board members? Tisha, representative.
Yeah, I agree. I think my recollection was that it was like a storm pond type situation, and I'm most likely a no.
Other board members' thoughts? Jill, do you have another one? Go for it. Sorry, I didn't know if you hadn't dropped the.
No, right. I'm sorry about that. Discombobulated today. I think we set a dangerous precedent if we open the floodgates to potentially naming detention and retention stormwater features. That's the only thing I had to add.
Thank you. Matt.
I'm agreeing with Jill and that we're setting a precedence if we're naming a stormwater retention pond.
Do we have other comments from board members, or is the board at a point that I can entertain a motion for action on this? An action that could be taken could be a motion and a second, followed by a vote to introduce this formally and to move forward with its consideration, which would start the tribal outreach period. There could also be a motion, a second, and a vote to continue this for further research. There could also be a motion, a second, and a vote to not move this forward for consideration. So if there are no additional comments or questions about the proposal, I would be at a point that I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to not move this forward in the consideration process.
Okay, we have a motion on the table by Jill Carlson to not introduce and move forward for consideration USBGN case number 6084 as it relates to the naming of an unnamed feature to Lake Reed. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Eric Bergman. Is there discussion on the motion? Hearing none, we will take a vote at this point. Please again unmute because we can't count thumbs ups for purposes of the vote. So please say aye if you are in favor of not moving forward with USBGN case number 6084.
Aye.
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 Opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries, and USBGN case number 6084 will not move forward for consideration. That brings us now to agenda item number 9, and this is consideration of USBGN cases 6113 and 6116. This is these were referred to in Stacy Coleman's presentation. This is Pingree Park and Pingree Hill to Soul Park and Soul Hill. And these are pages 25 through 42 of our agenda. Wendy, would you do us a favor of providing the case statement?
Yes, and Madam Chair, I plan to read the case summary, kind of the first half page, but if you want me to go further beyond that, let me know. So this proposal is to change the name of Pingree Park, a flat located along the South Fork Cache-la-Prudhoe River in Larimer County, to Soul Park. It was submitted by a representative of the No Pingree Task Force, along with another to rename Pingree Hill, located 11.5 miles to the north-northeast. Pingree Park has been labeled on USGS topographic maps since 1916 and was referenced in an entomology text published in 1930. According to an article in the Coloradoan, the park is named after George Pingree, who trapped in the area after the Sand Creek Massacre. At the northern end of the flat is Colorado State University's Mountain Campus, which in 2015 was renamed from Pingree Park Mountain Campus. The director of the Native American Cultural Center at CSU stated at the time, this opportunity to remove any association with George Pingree is a healing and an awakening for all who learn at and experience the mountain campus, particularly Native youth and Native CSU students. For further details regarding George Pingree and Silas Soul, see the Soul Hill proposal. And would you like me to read the entire case into the record, or?
No, I think that's sufficient to introduce case number 6113. And if you would do us a favor, then I think we can take these cases together. So if you would read case number 6116, so that we can consider them in one discussion, and it'll ultimately be 2 motions, but we can have discussion on both items at the same time.
Okay, thank you. For case 6116, Pingree Hill to Soul Hill, this proposal is to change the name of Pingree Hill, an 8,764-foot summit in Larimer County, to Soul Hill. Most of the hill is on the Arapahoe and Roosevelt National Forests. The proposal was submitted along with another to change the name of Pingree Park to Soul Park. And I think we already went through what that is. Pingree Hill was first named on USGS topographic maps in 1916, although that map and the 1920 edition placed the label on the hill's southwest slope. Since 1962, it has appeared on top of the hill. A 1906 article in the Larimer Independent suggested the name was already in local use prior to the USGS map. The proposed replacement name would commemorate Captain Silas Soul, 1838 to 1865, who refused orders to participate in the Sand Creek Massacre of 1864. The proponent of the change, representing the No Pingree Task Force, states, "We want to honor Soul for his courage on the battlefield and for daring to speak the truth during the military investigation." Furthermore, the name change would erase the dishonorable name of George Pingree and replace it with the entry Integrity of Soul. The Facebook page for the group states the No Pingree Task Force is a community effort to remove George Pingree's name from local landmarks.
Thank you so much. And as a reminder, we did get an update from Stacy Coleman regarding the tribal outreach, and the 120-day period has expired. Outreach was done to all the tribes, the 574 tribes, with special outreach done to the Ute Mountain Ute and the Southern Ute Mountain or the Southern Utes, and there were no responses received, so this is ready for consideration. Is there discussion about this item? Are we ready for a motion if there is no discussion? I would entertain a motion if there's no discussion. I would also still entertain discussion if there is any.
I
I'll
would,
make a, oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry, Jill, go ahead. Oh, you can,
I'll
I'll do it in a second.
recognize Eric with the motion.
All right. I would make a motion to move this forward.
And so this has been, so are you making, is the motion to accept the proposal and forward this to the governor for renaming?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. And this is regarding case 6113. We'll do a second motion for 6116.
I'll second the motion.
Fantastic. So we have a motion on the table from Eric Bergman to move case number, or to forward to the governor for consideration. USBGN case number 6113, the consideration of renaming Pingree Park to Soul Park. We have a second from Jill Carlson. Is there discussion on this motion? All in favor of forwarding this to the governor for consideration for the name change, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries, and this will be forwarded to DNR staff. My apologies, my dog just knocked something over. This will be forwarded to the governor by DNR staff for consideration. I would entertain a motion similarly on case number 6116, which is Pingree Hill to Soul Hill.
I move to send it to the governor.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Nikki. Okay, we have a motion on the table by Dr. Nikki Gonzalez to forward the recommendation to the governor for favorable consideration of renaming from Soul Park to Soul Hill, and a second from Thomas Andrews. Any discussion on that motion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Motion passes, and DNR staff will work on forwarding that to the governor as well. All right, that brings us to agenda item number 10. This is consideration of USBGN case number 6144. This is an unnamed feature to Lamonti Peak. Eric, did you have something before we move forward on that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a quick question. So how long does the governor have to act on these, or is there a time frame? Is it like I know with bills, he has X number of days to sign, or it becomes, becomes law without signature? I don't know what the protocol is, or how the governor treats these, or what the time frame is for action. If anyone knows, I'm just curious.
Great question. Wendy, we'll let you answer that one.
Yes, thank you. So as I took this role at the beginning of September, I am catching up on forwarding prior actions of the board to the governor's office, and then I will also include in that forwarding the actions from tonight. And they are pretty good about getting back to us fairly quickly. So once I can get those forwarded on and sort of catch up with all of the actions that this board has taken, I don't think it should be too long. Johnny may know of any time period that's built into the process, or Sarah might know, but I believe it's a fairly short turnaround once I can send it to the governor's office.
So there is not a set time for the governor's office or for the governor to forward these on to USBGN. But I will say those that we have sent to him have processed pretty quickly.
Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll make a quick representation for the attendees who might be watching, and also as a reminder to board members, this is an advisory board, which means that this board makes recommendations to the governor, and the governor may opt to follow this board's recommendations. The governor may also opt not to follow our recommendations, and the governor can also choose to not follow our recommendation and do something different. So this is very specifically an advisory board, and so nothing that we decide here this evening is final. It simply moves forward to the governor. So quick reminder for everybody on that, mostly for the benefit of attendees who might be curious what the next steps for your proposals are. All right. Thank you for that question, Eric. All right, Wendy, I'll turn this over to you for the Lamonti Peak case introduction, reading, not formal introduction.
Thank you, Chair Stout. This proposal submitted by a local resident is to make official the name Lamonte Peak for an 8,845-foot summit in Montezuma County and LaPlante County and on land managed by the Bureau of Land Management. The proponent reports that the name is used in a Federal Communications Commission license for a radio tower on top of the summit, and that the name is recognized by the county government. The meaning of the name is unknown. The summit is also referred to as Lamonte Peak on lists of john.com. The site reports 10 user reported ascents of the peak. The peakbagger.com website records the summit as unnamed peak, but includes a link to the list on john.com entries.
Sorry, this was introduced and moved forward for consideration at our June 9th meeting. So we are at a position now to have updates on the research. This was forwarded to the consideration/research phase. Johnny, do you have any updates or anything to add about this case?
Nothing to add, Madam Chair, but we do have the proponent attending. So if you'd like to speak, I can enable his microphone.
Certainly, I think it would be helpful for the board to hear from the proponent. I would ask the proponent to keep in mind that we have the packet and we have the submission, so we as the board have read and reviewed it. So if you would keep your comments brief and to anything pertinent for the board's consideration this evening.
Okay, quick as I can say it. Hello, my name is Randy Buxton. I just want to add that the only reason that I did this was to help the county government and the FCC to become in compliance, since they're not really supposed to be using names that are not named officially. So that's the only reason I did what I did. That is all.
Thank you. As somebody who works with the government, it's not often that somebody tries to help us be in compliance instead of finding a way to file a lawsuit. So thank you for that on behalf of those governmental agencies. All right, does the board have comments or questions? Hearing none, Stacy, this was one that there was no response and therefore from the tribes and therefore is ready for consideration from your perspective, correct?
That's correct, Chair Stout.
Wonderful. Then I think we're at a point that I would consider that I would entertain a motion on this case number 6114.
I'll motion to name this unnamed feature to Lamonte Peak.
Wonderful. So we have a motion on the table from Matt Steen to forward a recommendation for naming to the governor's office this unnamed feature to Lamonte Peak. This is USBGN case number 6144. And I would take is there a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jill. Any discussion on the motion? Thomas.
This might be kind of a silly question, but do we provide any like pronunciation guidelines? Because this is one where like already I think we're seeing different people are going to pronounce it different ways. I imagine that's just like not within our purview. Is that right?
I don't know that we have necessarily I don't know that we provide a pronunciation guide. We have not in the time that I've been here, but that does not mean that we haven't actually corrected pronunciations. In fact, we had that on a consent agenda recently to correct spelling because of pronunciation, if I recall correctly. Johnny, do you know if there's anything that comes with this to make sure that we're saying Lamont or Lamonte?
No, I don't know, Anna. We can ask the proponent. Yeah, let me unmute him again.
Mr. Buxton, do you have insight for us on that?
It is locally known as Lamonte.
Lamonte, okay. All right. Well, fortunately, we are having this meeting. I don't think we may not be recording this. Yes, we are recording this. So now it is in the record with a correct pronunciation. Any other discussion on the motion? Then at this point, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. And any abstentions? All right, motion carries, and we will forward a recommendation to the governor regarding case number 6144 for for favorable consideration of the proposal. We've been going for about 45 minutes. Does anybody need a break to adjust fluid levels, or are we good to keep going? I'm talking about water, guys. All right, we're gonna keep going. I don't see anybody dancing over here. All right, then we are now on agenda item 11. This brings us to our new cases. This is introduction of USBGN case number 6472. This is for an unnamed feature to Baptism Lake. And this is pages 58 and 59 of our packet. Wendy, I'll let you take it away.
Thanks, Chair Stout. The name Baptism Lake is proposed for a 1.45 acre lake located on the east slope of the Blue Ridge within the Rocky Mountains in the Byers Peak Vasquez Peak area of the Arapahoe National Forest, Grand County, Colorado. The lake is situated approximately halfway between the towns of Fraser and Granby. The proponent writes, "We were in the area nearby for a summer ministry project as people from various churches across the U.S. Two of my friends were baptized in the lake at the end of the summer to celebrate their walk in Christianity, so it has that special meaning to us. When we think of a summer ministry project, the lake always comes up in conversation. The name Baptism Lake is not to promote religion. GNIS lists no features in Colorado with baptism in the name, and it was originally submitted as Axolotl Lake."
Okay, then I will turn this over to the board for discussion at this point. Ultimately, what we're looking for is the board's discussion and then ultimately a decision to either forward this for to introduce it formally and forward it for research and further consideration and to initiate the tribal outreach period, or the board can ask for more information before formal introduction, or the board can opt not to move forward with introduction. So I will turn it over for discussion. Eric.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I apologize, Wendy. So the lake does have a name currently or does not have a name?
It is currently an unnamed feature.
It's unnamed. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Okay.
Per the proposal.
Okay.
Other comments or questions? Thomas.
I guess I'm not all that enthusiastic about this one because it doesn't seem like it has the sort of local connections or the sort of and the connections aren't really across much time. So I don't really love the idea of having a bunch of names that are really about a couple of individuals' fleeting experience. So I would I'm sort of leaning toward not moving this one forward personally.
Thank you. Other thoughts, questions, conversation? Matt?
I would agree with Thomas with his sentiment. That's
Thank
all.
you. Commissioner Rich?
Can I ask Wendy, or if someone knows if this unnamed lake is within the boundaries of the YMCA of the Rockies? I'm trying to look at Google Maps right now.
I don't think it would be, but I can't completely tell. I tried to put in the lat long, but didn't. I don't know. I didn't do it right.
The reason they asked, I'll give the history there from the locals' perspective. Both Larimer County and Grand County had a property tax dispute with YMCA of the Rockies. They have parks in Larimer and in Grand County. It's one YMCA entity, and that property tax dispute lasted a long time. It was quite expensive, and it hinged on whether a religious organization was obligated to pay property taxes or not. And so there is definitely some local history about the religious nature of this area, and that is between Fraser and Granby. So I kind of suspect it's nearby, if not within the park. And that might, I definitely agree with the prior two board members and their reluctance to look into this. I think it might be problematic.
Thank you. Dr. Gonzalez, I saw you had raised your hand a moment ago.
I'm sorry, that was a mistake.
That's okay. Do you have any thoughts?
Oh, I would agree with Dr. Andrews, definitely.
Thank you. Other thoughts or questions? I'll echo my concern about this is that this is not a name that appears to have local connections, be in local use, or the proponent doesn't seem to have a local tie to Colorado. As the Colorado Geographic Naming Advisory Board, I take our service to Colorado very seriously, and I don't personally find a compelling reason for this renaming. So I would support a motion to not move this forward were one to be made. Any other thoughts or comments from board members? Okay. At this point, then I will entertain a motion from the board.
We'll make that motion to not move this forward for consideration.
Okay, we have a motion on the table from Jill Carlson for USBGN case number 6472 to not move this forward at this point. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. We have a second from Interim Deputy Director Padilla. Any discussion on the motion? All in favor, please unmute and say aye.
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 Any opposed, please say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries and case number 6472 will not be forwarded for consideration. That brings us then to agenda item number 7. This is introduction as well of USBGN case number 6143. This is the naming of an unnamed feature to Sniktau Tarn, I believe. I hope I've pronounced that correctly. So I will turn it over to you, Indy, to make that sound the way that it is supposed to if I didn't.
Well, thank you, Chair Stout. I don't know how to pronounce it either, so I'll do my best. The name Sniktau Tarn is proposed to be made official for a 1.5 acre alpine lake on the southeast slope of Mount Sniktau, BGN 1926, and on the Arapahoe National Forest in Clear Creek County. According to the proponent, a resident of Texas, the proposed name is used by the American Alpine Club. His motive for officially naming the feature is to reference its beauty, allow for reference by hikers and other users in the area, and formalize the existing use. He adds, research continues on the origin and history of the word Sniktau. Correspondence with the University of California, Berkeley Linguistics Department suggests difficulty given the numerous dialects and the translation difficulty of the time period. And I can read more if you'd like me to.
I don't think that's necessary unless any board member requests further reading for purposes of the record. I think that's sufficient to present the case, though. And I will also just remind any attendees that are watching that the board has had this packet in advance and has had the opportunity to review it in its entirety. I will turn it over to the board for discussion. We can only have one person at a time. So Dr. Andrews.
Thank you, Chairwoman Stout. I'm in favor of this one. I mean, I know Mount Sniktau. The name's been around for a long time. It's a pretty recognizable feature, and I don't know this little lake, but given how Tarn sits below the peak, it seems pretty sensible. And I don't see anything in sort of I don't see anything in what the proponents have been able to find out regarding the name that raises any red flags for me.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? And as this is an introduction, a presentation for introduction, This is an appropriate time for board members to ask questions that we would like to have answered through research. That will be the next phase of any proposal that is moved forward for consideration that's introduced tonight. So it's very helpful for those that we ask to do the research if we can be specific about what we are asking them to look into and report back to us. Deputy Director Padilla, did you have a question or a comment? Johnny?
Johnny.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The proponent is online. He may or may not be able to speak at the moment. So if you'd like to speak to him, I could unmute him.
Thank you. I know that he might be live on air right now for his job. So is he available to speak? Especially if he can give us pronunciation, if it's Snick Tao, Snick Ta.
Hello, can you hear me?
You can.
Hi, folks. I have to be on TV in less than a minute, but I can come back in about 3 or 4 minutes if that's okay.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Uh-huh. All right. Do board members have any questions that they want specifically to be considered, or do we need to hear from the proponent first?
I'm fine moving it forward. I'll make that motion. If it forward means it would then be considered by or go to the tribes for consideration and research, is that correct?
Yep, this would a motion followed by a favorable vote would start the consideration period. So this would give Stacy time to start that process, and then it would also give us an opportunity to ask for any other research to be done by board members or partners.
All right. Well, I will make the motion to do everything you just said. Start the ball rolling, move it forward for consideration by the tribes and the research, et cetera. So I'll make that motion.
Wonderful. So we have a motion for formal introduction of USBGN case number 6143. This is the naming of an unnamed feature to Snick Tao Ta Tarn.
And I'll second that. And then I'm going to mute myself once and for all because this room is getting very noisy and I don't want to create problems. So I'll second it.
Thank you. All right, we have a motion on the table and a second by Jill Carlson. Do we have any discussion on this motion? I'm going to have some discussion on the motion really quickly. Do we want to hear from the proponent this evening? Do we need to hear from the proponent this evening? Since the motion is for introduction, that's why I'm asking. I don't want to make him return if he doesn't have to, and we can also request that he come back for the next meeting when we discuss this more in depth.
That's my preference, would be to have him come back the next meeting when there's a little more to go on. And
great. Okay. Then all in favor of formal introduction, please say aye.
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 Any opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Motion carries. Johnny, would you mind messaging Mr. Sell and letting him know that we don't need him to return to speak and that it has been formally introduced? Thank you. Okay, and then the last of our new introductions would be agenda item 13. This is USBGN case number 6560. This is the naming of an unnamed feature to Yellowroot Mountain. This is page 65 through 67 of our packet, and I will turn it over to you, Interim Deputy Director, to present the case.
Thanks, Chair Stout. The new name Yellowroot Mountain is proposed for an officially unnamed 11,492-foot summit in the Weminuche Wilderness in San Juan National Forest in Hinsdale County. The proponent explained the name by saying the name Yellowroot Mountain is inspired by the yellow sapwood of the ponderosa pine, a tree native to the Weminuche Wilderness and prevalent in the San Juan National Forest. This descriptive name highlights the area's natural features and ecological importance. Naming the mountain would also assist hikers and Forest Service personnel navigating near the Williams Creek trailhead, enhancing safety and communication.
Thank you. Discussion. Any questions the board has? Any sentiments on introduction or not? Eric.
I'm in favor of this one, at least moving it forward for more research and conversation, especially the safety issue. It's a remarkably beautiful area of the state and incredibly remote too. I think it's one of the most remote areas of the lower 48, actually, that region, Lake City region.
Thank you. Other discussion? Jared. Is it doctor? I will quickly apologize to everybody whose doctors I leave off. If they're not in your title, I forget and I'm very informal. So it's not at all to disrespect anybody.
Dr. Orsi is fine, but I prefer Jared. So just whatever you use is all right.
Thank you. Thank you for the grace.
So I have a question for Deputy Director Padilla. Another line in the proposal says that DNR staff could not find any use of yellow root to refer to Ponderosa. And I'm just wondering what that short line means. Does this mean that there's some doubt about whether yellow root actually does refer to Ponderosa, or am I misreading that?
Thanks for the question.
It
have
says
not been involved. I don't know. Go ahead, Johnny.
It says, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Wendy. I'm so sorry. It says DNC staff, so that's from the USBGN case summary, and I'm not sure who that staff is.
Is that something, Shelley, that you have any information on? Or is that completely separate from you?
Yeah, so that's my staff, and they have not been able to find a use of that term for the ponderosa pine.
Thank you.
So just confirming what Johnny said. Thanks.
Great. Dr. Andrews.
Yeah, I mean, it also, I don't know. I haven't been able to find any of that use. I mean, there's like a herb that's common in the East called yellow root, which I think is commonly, said with the yellow. I don't think the description makes any sense to me. I mean, why, like I get that there's a lot of yellow parts on a ponderosa, but I don't really see the root being that yellow. And it does seem like there's I'm not sure. I haven't really looked into this too deeply, but it does seem like there's a fungal, a fungal parasite that affects ponderosas that's called yellow root rot. So that might be a bit of an unfortunate association, but that's just at a quick glance. So. I mean, I think it makes sense. I get the argument for naming the feature, but I don't really see a compelling reason to name it this, I guess, is where I'm coming from.
One option the board does have is to go back to the proponent and ask the proponent for additional information. That could be substantiating information. It could be whatever the board needs from the proponent. The board can also ultimately, what we're deciding is whether or not this name should be forwarded for consideration as proposed, not whether, it's not the board's job to propose other names or to suggest something else to the proponent or ask the proponent to change it. That said, if the proponent were to come back and request to amend the proposal, the board could consider that. So there's a lot we can do if the board does want to introduce this to ask for clarification. The board can also ask for that clarification before moving forward with an introduction. So there's no right or wrong way to do this if the board would like more information about that name. Does anybody have interim deputy director?
I'm not interim, actually. So just wanted to correct that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is the title that I'm botching every single time?
I'm not interim. I'm the deputy executive director.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll defer to Nikki first, to Dr. Gonzalez first.
Oh, no, please call me Nikki. I would ask more information from the proponent. That would be my approach.
Great. And prior to introduction is the suggestion here?
Yes, prior to introduction.
Do we have other thoughts from board members?
And specifically, I would ask, like you said, evidence on the use of this term to describe ponderosa or more detail about why this name.
Great. Representative Morrow?
I agree that we should get more information prior to moving it forward.
Great. Thank you. This doesn't require formal action to provide that instruction, that guidance to DNR staff to move forward with further outreach and engagement with the proponent. So unless I'm hearing any strong opposition or alternative feelings to that, that's the direction from the board to staff. Is there any clarification needed from staff? Okay, fantastic. All right. Then that concludes our naming considerations for this evening. Jared.
Bad accident. Sorry.
Okay. No problem. We will now move to agenda item 14. And this is looking at our process document. And I will tee this up about what we're considering and why. If you would allow me to get to that part of my packet, if you'd give me just a second. This is a process document that we worked on about a year and a half ago, if I recall correctly, to really spell out what our process is for when we receive a proposal. How do we consider it? How do we go through it to try to provide some clarity to proponents and the public for how this board operates? We have identified a couple of things that have come up just through doing this process over the past 5 years or so. And so the result is the proposed changes to the process document. And I will turn this over to our Assistant Attorney General to explain what changes essentially have been made in the drafting.
Thank you, Chair Stout. I'm happy to do that. Or Wendy, if you would prefer to do that, I'm also happy to defer to you or Johnny.
Yeah, thank you so much, Sarah. In the proposed changes, they are redlined, so they'll really start on page 4. And I just want to go over the reason that we're considering these changes, which is to mirror the process that the USBGN is considering by asking proponents to bring forward more information when they submit a proposal. And we believe that this will kind of save time for not only the board, but also the proponents, as we have the information that we need to move things forward in a more efficient way. So you'll see on page 4 that the process prior to proposal introduction is proposed that the board requires certain documentation before it will consider the name change proposal. Specifically, the applicant must document efforts to seek local government support, local stakeholder support, landowner support, and provide any comments or letters regarding the proposal that they receive, regardless of whether the comments are for or against, supportive or not. And then once the board administrator, Johnny, receives the required additional documentation, the proposal will then go on to the agenda. And again, we believe that this saves time not only for the applicant and the proponent, but for the board to make sure that we understand what the local support is like. And then on page 5, there is another section about proposal introduction for applications on the consent agenda. And what this is a tool that the chair and the staff liaison may use to have name change proposals placed on the consent agenda as in the introductory phase, if unopposed and if non-controversial. If an application is controversial or has opposition, it is less likely to be placed on the consent agenda. And of course, at any time, board members may remove an item from the consent agenda for discussion. And so the other changes are more sort of house cleaning in nature, but those are the two big changes that we discussed. And welcome if I missed anything there. But it's really an effort as the board and staff have learned and kind of gone through the process, an effort to streamline things for everybody involved.
Thank you. That's a really good summary of how we got here. Is there any discussion on this? Anybody who has been on the board or has been watching the board for a while can recognize some changes that would actually have sped up some of our considerations. And a lot of this is that it ends up being the board that has to chase down the local government, for example, the local government support or otherwise, and that ends up burning up a lot of time when we don't hear back, or we often get questions from those entities that we're not really in the position to answer because it really is the proponent's proposal. So are there any questions or concerns or additions that the board would like to discuss as it relates to the process document? Dr. Andrews.
Thank you. I just had a question about the media attention component. You know, I can sort of imagine what that's about, but at the same time, I feel like that's ultimately out of the proponent's hands. And so I'd just like to kind of know a little bit more about what you know what why that belongs in here.
So that section is only for determining whether or not to put something on the consent agenda and not have it individually discussed. We would adopt the consent agenda in one vote. So that would potentially contain multiple proposals. Some examples of the kinds of proposals that might go on there are, you know, we recently had one where we were just correcting spelling, and that was something that really didn't need to have, you know, the full case summary read and, you know, open it up for discussion. That could have been done summarily. So the media attention component is not, that doesn't relate to the proponent or the proponent's, you know, their estimation of anything. That really just comes down to the staff. And at this point, it's been the board chair or the board chair and vice chair as we're agendizing things and trying to figure out the best way to manage the meeting. Shelley, did you have something to add to that as well?
Well, just general comments overall. At first, thank you to the board for putting this together. This was a great document to read through. I guess just the comments that I'd like to offer from the federal level are that I think there may be some additional conversations that we could have to work out some more detail and fidelity in some of these points. But overall, I thought it was a great document. We're looking forward to seeing how you implement this. Thanks.
Thank you. Dr. Shuada.
Thank you. Yeah, this looks like a lot of work. I appreciate it. So for A1 and 2, it seems like there's a little bit of faith on our side. Is that the way that you envision the process going? Is that we just take it on good faith that things that are submitted are including everything that was collected and that are accurate and authentic?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. And certainly the board could, if the board had reason for concern or to question that, the board could do outreach to confirm the fidelity of a document or of a position. One thing that we did discuss as we were putting this document together was that we really want to make sure that all of those conversations are included. So that's what we're expecting out of the proponent, is that we get the communication, not just favorable communication. For example, so if a local government were to come back and say, no, we don't support this, the proponent is expected to include the non-support from whoever they did that outreach to. Does that answer the question well enough?
It does answer the question. It does feel like there's a little bit of good faith or trust on our side to ensure that nothing has been omitted that would run against the intentions of the proposal.
I think that's fair. And I think the board too, it is incumbent upon us as we're considering the proposals to to look at the same way that we consider them now and consider whether there are local stakeholders who may not have been included. So, and that may not be an omission that's intentional on the proponent's part. It may be that they just don't know how to identify a stakeholder, or wouldn't have thought of somebody as a stakeholder. We've made it so far in the evening. So it would still be within the board's not just purview, but also responsibility to ensure that we feel that the information provided is not only complete, but that it was a complete look at what should have been considered in that outreach. And then it's also within the board's, I think, discretion to say that it wasn't that the proponent did not do enough of that and send it back to the proponent, or to also gauge whether or not the proponent's submission included everything honestly or completely, whether that's intentional or otherwise. Tony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I like the proposal for a couple of reasons. We struggled, at least when I first started on the board, with trying to project what applicants were proposing. So I think the guidance is good, and it will save a considerable amount of time, I think. So I like the proposal.
Thank you. Jared.
Yes, thank you. I like the proposal too. And I just want to raise one question because I have less experience on the board than any of the rest of you. Is there a scenario in which a proponent would find the changes to Section 3A 1 and 2 difficult to comply with? So, for example, a proponent who really isn't connected to local government circles or to landowners or other people in the community who might be stakeholders, and that this could impose a significant burden in being able to submit a proposal at all. I don't know if that would be the case, but I'm just wondering if those of you who have more experience on the board can imagine something like this. Again, I generally I can see the logic behind this, so I'm not criticizing, but I am interested in just thinking about people who are more marginal in their communities and may not be able to gather local support as effectively as some others.
Wendy.
Yeah, thanks. I haven't been on the board, but the way that I sort of see that statement and read it was document efforts to seek the comments. So, I think if the board kind of likes this direction, then there's the sort of checklist or process that the proponents need to go through, which is, hey, have you reached out to this local government? What was the date and time? Did you hear back? Nope, didn't hear back. And that was sort of a documentation that they reached out to the local area. So sort of not dinging them if they don't hear back.
I would also, I hear that concern, and I think it's a valid one. And I would also add that, in part, this is being written in a way to not make it so easy to submit a proposal that we get sort of frivolous proposals, if you will, where folks haven't done any effort, and it really just the only time that's gone into the proposal is sitting down and submitting the forms. We do want there to be some more effort put in by the proponent, because again, it falls on the board otherwise, and it may actually help the proponent land on a better name, or actually learn more about the feature in that process. So we want this to be educational. I'll mention too that this came up during the COGNA conference, the National Naming Advisory Group meeting in 2024, and this was a conversation being had by many, at the national level and by many of the state naming advisory or naming authorities, because it was a common thing we shared that there were more proposals that came in a lot of our states than our boards could possibly consider. And so we all discussed ways that we could find, we could share some of that background work and research work with the proponent. Rich, do you have anything to add? You were part of those conversations during that conference, if I recall.
I agree, and yes, I was, but nothing else to add. You covered it, and for what it's worth, I really read through the changes to the document, and I think they're very positive. And re regarding potentially disadvantaged people having a hard time doing this stuff, yeah, that's definitely a concern. I think, for the most part, local governments really try hard. I think this state agency really tries hard to assist those that might need assistance, and I can't really think of a remedy to accommodate the potential of the difficulties some people might have. So, and as was stated, I guess, if they're unable to get the information, that's kind of okay. It'll be reported that way, and it may still proceed. So, thank you, Chair Stout.
Stacy.
Thank you, Chair Stout. I think something that I was just thinking about here and wanted to ensure that we were all kind of on the same track with this is with the sort of piece here at the beginning in Section 3A, A1 specifically, it doesn't include tribal governments. And I presume that that's sort of intentional. We can give pros and cons on why we might not want a proponent, and a number of different proponents reaching out to several different, tribal governments, and why we'd rather have that remain in sort of maybe a specific staff role within the board to better support our tribal partners and, not create capacity problems for them. But also, I just want to see, like, for something that then, if that prior process to proposal, we deem it okay, it kind of goes on the consent agenda. Is there, any thought on how that works with tribal outreach at that point, or if it's supposed to be conducted before on consent agenda, or not at all under the circumstances, because the USBGN does do outreach at the very beginning in their process to all 574 federally recognized tribes. So wanted to get a better idea of where people might be at on that.
Stacy, you are spot on that we did consider that and deliberately did not put that on the proponent, and we felt that was better managed by our staff liaison, and that it might make an already overtaxed organization, or the like the TIPOs that are already dealing with a lot, be dealing with much more coming from others, especially before they're being introduced. So we thought that the point of outreach was appropriate at the point of introduction. So that was why we didn't include that as the proponent's responsibility. And then the second question, the consent agenda would not be used to jump over, I guess is the unofficial way of saying it, to jump over the outreach period. So that consent agenda would be used, for example, to immediately introduce something, rather than if we know that it's something that is non-controversial and necessary, then we would, or otherwise we believe the board would favorably introduce it, we can put that on the consent agenda. And then once the consent agenda is passed, that starts that 120-day period if it's for an introduction. If it's for a adoption of a recommendation to forward to the governor, that would be after the period had concluded and after you had determined that there, similar to tonight's considerations, that there was no response or no opposition. Shelley.
Yes, so in regard to the previous topic on some of the disadvantaged members in the community, I'm just curious for section 3B. Are you looking at any sort of timeline for this to occur? So in the event that the proponent is unable to get this required information, does it then go into this valley of death, so to speak? Or how do you envision that process working out where we're not putting a proposal into a perpetual hold state?
Let me clarify, make sure I'm understanding the question. So are you asking if the proponent, for example, isn't able to document isn't able to get local government support or stakeholder support, or at what stage are we talking about?
Yeah, just how long do we give them to get that information before we have to make a decision about whether or not that proposal is going to go forward or not?
So we wouldn't consider the proposal complete. It would not be considered a complete submission without that documentation. So it wouldn't even come to the board until that were to be completed. But I think to Wendy's point earlier, they can put, that requirement is satisfied by simply putting something in there that says I did outreach and didn't hear back. And putting an email or documenting a date and time of a phone call and a voicemail left and then a follow-up call. So it doesn't mean that they have to have the response back or even have a favorable response back. They just have to show us reasonable efforts being made to seek those responses.
Yeah, the only reason I'm asking is because sometimes we have proponents where all of a sudden they go dark and it's complete radio silence. And so then we have to make a call as to how to handle that case. Do we close it, or do we just keep trying to do outreach to them to get answers? So I'm just curious if you guys have thought through that at the state level.
Help me understand really quickly the process, the state, we wouldn't have received it until you had received it first, correct?
Correct.
And so it would have gone through the USBGN process first, which does not necessarily require the standard that we're considering tonight. Is that accurate to say?
Well, I guess maybe I'm misreading this. And that's why I suggested maybe having another conversation, an offline conversation about this to work through the differences between our federal level process and the state level, just to make sure that it's clear who's doing what and when and for how long.
Yeah, that I'm fine with that. There's nothing pressing about adopting this tonight. This was meant to be introduced so the board can consider and provide feedback. And certainly we have our AAG on to provide legal advice if we need to go into exec session for any of the legal advice. Wendy, did you have a thought?
Yeah, we'd be happy to set up a meeting with you, Shelley, and kind of walk through all of those details so we can look at workflow and then bring something back that it considers your input.
Okay, yeah, that sounds great. Thank you.
Are there other thoughts or questions Dr. Gonzalez, Nikki?
Sure. I was just wondering if you might be able to explain, I guess it's section 3C again, because I guess I don't know if I'm completely understanding, like, the prominent feature, non-controversial, or receives media attention characteristic.
Yeah, this is so when we are putting the agenda together and deciding, where we put it in the agenda, this would be essentially an additional item on our agenda that would go right after we approve the agenda and we approve our summary. The next item would be our consent agenda. And there may not be a consent agenda on every meeting. And frankly, if there's only one item on the consent agenda, that isn't uncommon, but essentially the consent agenda means that we're not going to discuss each of them in detail. They're considered by the board. They've been, formally noticed in our documents, and the documentation will be there, but it's not meant to be a board discussion item. if a board, and so that's really at the discretion of staff, with the board chair and the board vice chair input on where those things go on the agenda. Once we get to the agenda, the consent agenda consideration on the agenda, though, if there's something on there that a board member thinks should be discussed in our open meeting, they can actually move to remove that, and then it goes right into our agenda as if it were a usual, a regular agenda item. The idea is that we know staff has done this long enough, and we have a sense for what things are not, that they don't require full board conversation to get to that. A lot of them are cleanup items. A lot of them are very straightforward proposals that we can move straight into the, essentially put them on the consent agenda to go straight into formal introduction. So that's really, it's really just meant to condense our agenda a little bit and not require full board conversation on items that don't need to have a full, to have the full reading. Again, though, I think it's really important that the board, any one board member, it doesn't require, it requires one board member to want to remove it, to make that motion and be able to take it off. And in fact, I think we can do it quite informally by just saying, I'd like to take this off, and we don't have to, there's no filibustering that. If somebody wants to take it off and discuss it, we can take it off and discuss it as a board. Does that answer the question? Make sense?
Yeah, thank you. It's helpful.
All right. Any other thoughts on the proposed process document changes? Then our next steps with that will be to schedule a meeting to make sure that this lines up really well with the USBGN process. And then we'll bring a final draft for consideration to the board at the next meeting, with the hopes that we will be at a position to consider it for formal adoption. All right. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening, or any other discussion the board would like to have? Then let's discuss our next meeting. We were able to schedule a next meeting last time with everybody all at once, but I think we have enough of us on here that it might make the most sense to have Johnny doodle. But if we could discuss what time frame we'd like to do that, that would help her narrow down when this doodle would go out. Are we looking at January? Is that a reasonable? We do have a long list of proposals, so we're not just sitting back right now. We need to make sure that we're moving things forward. So is January a reasonable time to come back? Or do we want to schedule this after the 120-day period for the ones we just introduced? We can have rolling periods, though, where we meet within the 120 days, and the proposals that are still within that 120-day period are not ready for consideration until the subsequent board meeting. So there's nothing wrong with us meeting in between, so we can keep introducing and moving a couple of these proposals that are pending forward. Eric.
January is good for me. I mean, I'll be very selfish. The session starts, early mid-January, but doesn't really get rolling until kind of more into February. So January is a little bit slower, but.
And that might be helpful for our state legislators who are on the board to do it then too, I'm guessing.
Yes, January is better than February.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know there's not a good time for
sure.
you once January starts, but there's a better time. So why don't do we want to narrow, I mean, the first week of January is sort of in the vortex of holidays still. So are we looking mid-January? Mid to late January? Okay, then we'll get, I'll take all the credit for it, but Johnny's going to get a doodle out and get us all organized and get a meeting scheduled.
The royal we. Thank you, Johnny. You rock.
All right. Do we have any members of the public still on who would like to make comment this evening? We have one hand raised, John Carson. Johnny, can we unmute Mr. Carson?
You're unmuted, Mr. Carson. You can speak.
He still shows as muted on my list somehow.
He needs to unmute himself, I think.
Okay, Mr. Carson, can you hit your unmute button? I think we've given you permission to do so. Is there a chat function, Johnny, in case there's a technical thing on his side that he can communicate to us?
Let me see if I'm going to promote him to panelist. Maybe that'll help if that's okay.
That's fine. I think we're at the end of the meeting, so that's totally fine. All right, I think we can hear you now, Mr. Carson. If you unmute yourself, we can hear you. But we've done the action on our side that allows you to unmute, but we need you need to physically unmute it with the microphone button. Okay. Unfortunately, it appears that we're not going to be able to hear you, Mr. Carson. And I don't see anybody else in the attendees who have raised their hand to speak. So unfortunately, I'm really sorry, Mr. Carson. We would love to hear from you. If there is a comment that you'd like to make and want to include it in the record, you can email it to Johnny and to Wendy. We can send you that information. But if you get that to us, we can make sure that the board members all receive that as well. And I want to thank you and the other panelists or the other attendees who have logged off. It really is, this is a public board, and we do this work. We serve at the pleasure of the governor on behalf of the state. So it is really meaningful to us that we have members of the public who do log in and watch this and spend is today Tuesday? A Tuesday evening? Yeah, Tuesday evening with us. So thank you so much for being on, and we're sorry we couldn't hear you this evening. But again, if you send your comment via email, we'll make sure that the board all gets it. Is there any other business to come before the board this evening? All right, then it is 6:37, and I will give you all 23 minutes of your life back. Thank you for being here this evening, and thanks for your diligent work and service.
Thank you.
Thank you.